Welcome to Discourse Politics, everybody. Today is the day we finally make an election prediction. Not that I want to spoil this, but we're going to go over 3 different ways to measure this contest. And I just have to say, in all 3 ways, Joe Biden has officially become the underdog. I know that might shock you, coming from the fact that every other person, aside from maybe Red Eagle Politics, is saying that Donald Trump is the underdog. But based upon the models that I've created over the past 14 to 16 days, it does not look good for Joe Biden. And we'll go over that. So first, we're going to start with the Discourse Politics polling error predictive model. So what I've been doing with this model the whole time for the past few weeks is updating where the error was in 2016, however many days out from the election that we are. As of yesterday, we were 6 days out from the election. So there's basically a column for 6 days out and then current polling. And then all it's doing is adjusting for how much error was in the 2016 polling. And if that was applied to current polling, what would that do to the race? So currently, as it sits, if the polls are 100% accurate, Donald Trump is going to lose and Joe Biden is going to win 304 electoral votes. However, if we get to, say, 50% of the error, Joe Biden is still going to win, but this time with only 289 electoral votes. So what if we get to 70%? 70%, Donald Trump gets 269 electoral votes. And that's because a tie will most likely go to Donald Trump because each state gets a delegation. Currently, Republicans have 26 state delegations that would vote for President Trump, and Democrats only have 22. You have to win a plurality, not necessarily a majority. So right now, Republicans are 4 votes ahead. And even after the election, if this were somehow to get drug out, with the new Congress sworn in, they're still expected 24 to 23 is the best projection. So Republicans should be able to maintain control of the White House if Donald Trump gets 269 electoral votes, assuming there's no faithless electors. A faithless elector is somebody who was nominated by the state to cast a vote for president and the Electoral College, and they cast a vote in a different direction than what the state wanted. Most states have laws against that. Some states actually don't. So it is possible for someone from some state that doesn't have a law that requires them to vote in accordance with how the state voted. They could cast what's called a faithless vote from a faithless elector. So just something to think about. Never happened in our history where it was consequential, but this could be the time. The question that I've been trying to answer is, what percentage of error do I think is happening in the 2016 election? So I believe if only 68% of the error that happened, so not even if polling is 32% better now than it was in 2016, Donald Trump would still win the election. Now, I wanted to make the model a little more intricate and add a weighting system to it. So I created Discourse Politics Polling Error Predictive Model 2, same sort of backbone as the first one, where you're using current polling based upon error of 2016. And this has a weighting system with an interval. So what the interval does, and by the way, you can download all of these spreadsheets in the Google Drive doc that I have, the public Google Drive doc that I have, link in the description below. Download your own copy and you can play with the numbers all you want. Only fill in where the yellow areas are. Otherwise, you'll probably mess up equations because there's a lot of them on the sheet. But nonetheless, just a reminder that you can download all of these spreadsheets that I'm going over today. What this has is this has an interval. And what this interval is based upon the error you project. So right now it's projecting 0% error. Polls are 100% accurate. This interval is 10 intervals up and 10 intervals below. So if you set this to, let's say, 25, and we'll get to this over here in a second, but what that does is it sets 0%, which is the most likely thing to happen, which is 25%. So it sets that at 25%, and then the interval is 10 intervals up. So since the interval is 5%, we expect 25% error. So it uses a weighting system to where it goes from 20%, 25%, all the way to negative 25% because there's 10 intervals below and 10 intervals above. And the only reason I wanted to do this is because you need to introduce some variability whenever you're doing a predictive model. This is the most rudimentary way to do it, but it is a way to at least add some variability to bring it closer to what would be an average or a mean over time. And so what I did was I weighted this as the probabilities that this would happen 10 intervals deep each direction. A different way to look at this would be to say 24% of the time, whatever error that I think is going to happen is actually going to be exactly the error. And then 14% of the time, it's going to be one interval above and one interval below. 8% of the time, it's going to be two intervals above, two intervals below, all the way to where 1 out of 1,000 times, it'll be 10 intervals, basically outside of that 95% confidence level that you would get typically in some sort of weighting system. So that's basically what it is. It's very heavily weighted for the mean. So 52% of the distribution is going to happen within one interval of whatever this is, right? So I hope I explained that correctly. It's kind of hard to explain. I'll probably cut out a lot of the explanation because it was way longer than probably what I'll end up putting in the video. So anyway, what you can see is, first let's play with the interval. I think 5% is pretty good because I'm trying to sort of capture, that's 50% above, 50% below. So if I set the error at say 50%, it's capturing what would be 100% of the error and 0% of the error. Let's see what happens when we increase the interval to say like 10. So when we increase the interval, and this makes a lot of sense, when you increase the interval, Donald Trump's chances of winning go up. And the reason is because the further away you get from what is currently projected, the more likely it is that Donald Trump is going to win. In other words, Donald Trump needs more variability inside measuring a predictive outcome in order for him to have a better chance of winning. So actually, the larger the interval is, the better it is for Donald Trump. You know, if we made it something like he wins many more times, he has many more chances of actually winning the election than he did when we had a lower interval. I think 5% is pretty good because it's basically going 50% above and 50% below. Now the only question is, what percentage of error do I think the polls are currently making? And it has been my thesis this whole time that they are making at least the error they made in 2020. And I believe, based upon all the evidence we've gone over, that error has only increased, that the social desirability of Donald Trump has only been worse, meaning that people are less likely to actually express their belief that they're going to vote for Trump to an unnamed pollster. Donald Trump himself has thrown shade on pollsters, which means that people who support Donald Trump are less likely to even talk to pollsters. The number of people who lie to pollsters has also increased, which has been measured. The number of people who are afraid or will not tell a pollster that they're voting for Donald Trump has been measured as at least twice the level for Republicans that say they're going to vote for Trump than Democrats that say they're going to vote for Biden. So you have all these errors in these variabilities, and there's such a low response rate. A non-response bias is present in every single poll, with the exception of polls that are asking the question in different directions, in different ways, and polls that are actually giving people a chance to answer the question 2, 3, or 4, or 5 times, meaning they call them, and if they don't want to talk on the phone, they send them a private text. If they don't want to talk over text, they send them an email where they can do it online. Those kinds of getting rid of that non-response bias will give you a better chance of capturing that hidden Trump vote. So the ones that are doing that show this as a race within 2 to 3 points. The ones that are showing an 11-point wash for Biden are not capturing enough Trump votes. As we have gone exhaustively over on this channel, they have not captured the Trump votes inside the polls. So I think the polls have gotten worse. So I think at the end of the day, I'm going to make my prediction that polls are 150% worse or 50% worse than they were in 2016, which means that this variable would be 150%. And when we do that, I am predicting that Donald Trump will win on average. There's not a good way for him to reach 291, but on average, I think Donald Trump's going to win 291 electoral votes. And sort of to find what's close, I think 296 would actually be the most likely number near that, or 295. So 295 is the most likely number that he's going to get if he is near that number. But on average, he's going to get about 291 electoral votes is my prediction. Now, I was not going to put this out because honestly, it's so against the grain, but then I have to weight that against my second model, which is, it's really interesting once you weight the two. So let's go through my second model real quick, and then I will show you why I decided to make a video about this, because it's so against the grain that I know I'm going to get flamed in the chat, and that's fine. I don't care about getting flamed in the chat, but I just didn't want to put something out there that was so crazy that people are like, you're absolutely nuts. So let's go over the second model and understand why, when you juxtapose these two models, I don't see how Biden is not the underdog. Donald Trump is on track to win this election. So when we go to, this is the Discourse Politics voter turnout model. The first spreadsheet that we went over is called Election Prediction Version 1. And this spreadsheet is early voting and Election Day turnout 3 from 6 p.m. on October 28th, 2020. And what this is this has captured almost all the early votes that have been cast thus far. And what we have seen is over time, in most states, in most of the swing states, Joe Biden's lead has been decreasing over time. Now, why is that important? And it's because of vote method. And what's funny is the newest YouGov poll that just came out yesterday actually had what I had predicted, which is that the numbers tightened slightly for Joe Biden, meaning only 14% of his supporters said they're going to come out on election day. What I projected would happen actually started to happen with some people. Now 16% of his supporters are saying they're coming out early or they're going to come out on election day, because I think most of them forgot to mail their ballot in. And so now they're sort of forced to come out on election day. And then on the other side, I said that I think Republicans might be sort of jumping the gun and getting in there early when they said they're going to vote on election day. And you actually saw that number go from 45% to 41%. So I just want to sort of flash that on the screen real quick. So the YouGov poll actually has Biden at 54% to Trump at 43%. So they have Biden winning by 11%. And the reason I'm choosing to use this is because this is probably the worst case scenario for Donald Trump, and it's not that bad. So again, coming here to vote method, that used to be 45%, now it's 41%. I think a lot of Donald Trump supporters couldn't wait for election day. That's how excited they are. That about 10% of them said, I'm going to vote early. And so they went in and they actually voted early in person. 14% of Biden supporters said they were going to wait till election day. Now that's up to 16%. So we have to reweight those numbers. And I did that at the bottom. The reason that this is bad for Biden is in that YouGov poll, he's got 54%. 16% of that 54% said they're going to come out on election day. So that's a weight of 8.64. Donald Trump, on the other hand, has 43% of support in that poll, and 41% of that 43% said they're coming out on election day in force, which is a weight of 17.63%, which means that turnout on election day is supposed to be 32.9% for Biden, 67.1% for Trump. Now, we will get to this in just a second. We're going to end up comparing the methods. Right now in Arizona, Biden is only ahead by 1.6%. So keep in mind that 84% of his supporters said they're going to come out early or vote early in person. They are way behind their benchmarks because they're only 1.6% ahead. Joe Biden's only 1.6% ahead. On election day, as we approach election day, Donald Trump's turnout is supposed to be 67.1% to 32.9%. And if you run through the numbers on election day, right now, as it sits, Trump needs something like 51.7% to win the state of Arizona. He's supposed to get 67.1 on election day. There's 67.7% of the vote in Arizona, and Donald Trump only needs 51.7% of the remaining projected vote to win the state of Arizona. If that poll, that YouGov poll is correct, he's supposed to get 67% of the vote on election day. So Joe Biden is running out of time to run up that score high enough to keep his victory on election day. Florida, same story, different state. Joe Biden is ahead by 1.8%. On election day, there's still about 3.8 million votes outstanding. That's about 62% of the projected vote is already in. Votes needed by Donald Trump is 1.9 million. He only needs 51.5%. Again, he's supposed to get 67.1. Michigan, Joe Biden is only ahead by 4.4%. Donald Trump only needs 51.8%. That's well below what he's projected to get on election day. North Carolina, Joe Biden is ahead by 3.3%, which means that Donald Trump needs to get 53.9%. Is that anywhere near 67%? And this state looks good for Joe Biden because he's ahead by 35.1%, but the turnout is so low compared to the other states. The turnout is so low, Donald Trump only needs 56.7%. He's supposed to get 67.1%. And finally, Wisconsin. Joe Biden is ahead by 2.9% on average. Donald Trump only needs 51.1%. But his election day turnout is going to be a lot higher than Joe Biden's. It's projected to be 67% to 32%. This projection is crazy. I was going back and forth on whether or not to publish this kind of video because it does sound crazy. But here's the thing. Here's what I realized. These two models work in tandem perfectly. And here's what I mean. This model basically says if the vote were held one time, which, I mean, it is held one time, and only 68% of the error that existed in 2016 happens, Donald Trump's going to win the election. So the polls have to be accurate at least 60. They can't be more than 68% wrong like they were in 2016. They have to be 32% better than they were in 2016. Well, the reason that works perfectly in tandem with my other model is that in order for Joe Biden to win, he has to hope that the polls are wrong by 94%. Okay. So in one model, the polls can't be wrong by 86%. In this model, they have to be wrong by 94%. And what do I mean by that? Well, Biden needs 15% more support to turn out on election day than what has been projected. For example, his expected turnout is 16%. In order for him to win currently with how the board looks, he's going to have 31% of his base show up on election day, even though 16% is the only percent that said they're going to come out. So you get to 31%. Look what it does to the weight. So that means that on election day, Donald Trump's going to win 51.3% and Biden's going to win 48.7%. So 15% out of 16%, they need the poll to be wrong about Joe Biden supporters by 94% in order to overcome that. Because what that does is 51.3% for Donald Trump on election day, it means he loses the state of Arizona. He loses the state of Florida. He loses Michigan. He loses all of them except Wisconsin. He'll win Wisconsin if he gets 51.3% of the turnout on election day. And why does it have to be 15? Why can't it be a 30% turnout? Well, let's do a 30% turnout. If 30% of Biden's base is turning out on election day and 41% of Trump's support is turning out on election day, Trump would get 52.1% of the vote. He'd win the state of Arizona. He'd win the state of Florida. He'd win Michigan. He would lose North Carolina. He would lose Pennsylvania, but he would win Wisconsin. So he would still win the election. So it has to be at least 31% to 41% in a poll that Biden is polling at 54% to Trump 43%. So when you put those two together, the polls, they can't be more wrong than 68%. But you go over to this one, they have to be 94% wrong on specifically Biden supporters in order for Biden to overcome what is going to be an election day landslide if 41% of Trump's base is coming out in support on election day. So the reason I decided to put this out is because these models reinforce each other, meaning that Biden would have to thread a needle in order to get past what we know to be true at this point, which is the polls can't be more than 68% wrong like they were in 2016 or Donald Trump's going to win, but they have to be more than 94% wrong for his turnout on election day in order for him to win what we know to be true, which is the votes that are already cast. Now, I said that there were three models I wanted to go over, so here's the third model. So this is called Vote Ferret. It's pretty neat. You can do stuff on election day where you can actually see as states come in, and I might even do a fake, election night analysis, and I'll probably will because it's kind of fun. Do a fake election night analysis, and as states are called, these percentages change, and they change based upon like if you do lean Democrat, that goes up to 71%. But then if you lock it in Democrat, it goes up to 75%. So it is an interactive map that actually updates as you change stuff on the map. So what started all of this for me is I was making that Biden video, top 10 reasons Biden is going to win. And I got to the part where I was looking at the Electoral College and I had a flashback to 2016. And the flashback was Donald Trump had to win Ohio, North Carolina, Florida, which he wasn't supposed to win any of those. Maybe Ohio, but not. He wasn't really. Maybe Ohio. He was behind in Ohio. He was slightly ahead at some point in North Carolina, but not really. And then he was only slightly ahead in Florida. So he had to pull off a trifecta. And then after that, he was only supposed to win maybe Arizona. So his ceiling was 259. Nobody could see a pathway for him to win more than 259 electoral votes because these three states were all supposed to go to Hillary Clinton. But he wasn't expected to win all three of these states, Florida, North Carolina, Ohio. I think he's in better shape to win those states this time than he was last time. So look what happens right now as it sits with these as the toss-up states. Joe Biden looks like he's the favorite, 67 to 32%. But watch what happens when you lock it in. Once they call Florida for Donald Trump, he's now the favorite to win. He's 52% of the time he's going to win, 3% they're going to tie, which is still a Donald Trump win if there is a tie, which would be kind of interesting. But I think that would be too close. I think our country needs a landslide one direction or the other. What happens, like in 2016, when they call the race in North Carolina for Donald Trump? When that happens, like in 2016, Democrats are going to panic because once you lock in North Carolina, his chances of winning shoot up to 66%. His chances to tie jump up to 6%. And Biden only has a 28% chance to win. Because I think he's got, at the very least, I think he's got Florida. Once you lock in Florida, he's got a better than 50% chance to win. He's well on track to win Florida. Well on track. And, if you look at the betting odds, it's up to, I believe, 60% as of yesterday. 60% of people are voting on Trump to win Florida. It doesn't look like Biden even has a chance in Florida at this point. Early vote returns in Texas look really good for Texas Republicans. They're way ahead of where they were in 2016 percentage-wise. This is really the map now. I believe Florida, Florida can still go to Joe Biden, but I think it's pretty close to being in the bag for Trump. I will say this, though. If you're having questions like, well, what about Texas? What about Georgia? Well, here's the issue. If Joe Biden wins Georgia or Texas, we're wasting our time talking about it because this is going to be a landslide in the other direction because there's no way that Georgia votes to the left of Texas. There's no way Texas votes to the left of Georgia. There's no way that Georgia votes to the left of Wisconsin. There's no way that Wisconsin votes to the left of Michigan, and there's no way that Michigan votes to the left of Pennsylvania. So if Joe Biden wins Georgia, the election's over because the map will look something like this. It'll look something like bam, 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 bam. Something along those lines, and maybe not Texas. Let's undo that. So, it'll look something like that. And then we're kind of wasting our time talking about the election because it's a landslide towards Biden. But it's hard to believe that Georgia's going to go to the left of North Carolina. It might happen, but I doubt it. But it's definitely not going to go to the left of Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. So it's just hard to conceive of it's hard to conceive of that happening. But once Trump locks in Florida and North Carolina, he can hit Pennsylvania, and that's 269. Election's pretty much over. He can do Arizona, Wisconsin. That's 270. Election's over. He could do Arizona, Michigan. Election's over. He could do Wisconsin, Michigan. Election's over. Could do Michigan, Nevada. Election is over. Could do Arizona, Nevada, New Hampshire. Highly doubtful, but I'm just going through. That's why he's ahead 66% and a tie 66% of the time, as opposed to Joe Biden. There's just so many pathways for him to get to 270. Yeah, so once you call North Carolina and Florida, the race looks completely different for Joe Biden. It's the same thing we did in 2016. One last look at this spreadsheet. According to this, Joe Biden doesn't have enough votes in any state to hold on. There is an army of Trump supporters that are coming to vote on Election Day. And even if it truly is, even if Donald Trump supports 43%, which would be highly unlikely, it's probably closer to 46, 47%. At the very least, it's 45%. No incumbent president has ever done below his, usually it's 1 or 2 points above his average approval rating, which is, in about the 44% range for him. So he should get at least 45, 46%. But nonetheless, if his support is 43% and 41% of them are waiting for Election Day, Joe Biden's going to get swamped. He doesn't have enough votes in any state to hang on. So if you want my 100% honest opinion, I think there's a good chance we repeat the map of 2016, which is exactly this. So you have 306 electoral votes for Donald Trump, 232 for Joe Biden. So anyway, that's my analysis. Flame me, don't flame me. I think it's 88% in which Trump wins. Yeah, 88%. So please keep your flaming to a minimum in the chat. I know it's coming. Share this video far and wide. I think Joe Biden is officially the underdog at this point. I don't see him having enough votes. I think you're starting to see some cracks. You had Hillary Clinton saying things like, it's hard for me to fathom another 4 years. And the way she said it, it seemed like internally they know. When I started making this spreadsheet weeks ago, I think it was about the time that their campaign also started looking at these numbers internally, not looking at my spreadsheet. I'm not arrogant enough to believe that they actually looked at my spreadsheet. Nobody looked at my spreadsheet. I had 100 views on my video. But the point is that someone in their campaign is doing exactly what I'm doing. And I'm sure about 2 or 3 weeks ago, he or she raised up the red flag and said, hey, these early vote numbers are not looking good. Since 85% of our supporters said they were going to vote early or vote by mail, and only 55% of Trump supporters said that the numbers were too close. They needed a 6% margin on election day, and they still could get it. Like I said, there could be a contingent of early votes that are on the way, but I doubt it. So that's my prediction. Donald Trump is going to get on average 292 votes, somewhere between 295 or 306 electoral votes. So that's my estimation. Share this video far and wide, like and subscribe for more strange content, and I will see you next video. Don't forget to be nice in the comment section. There's no need to be rude. Golden rule, love thy neighbor, all that good stuff. And I will see you next video.